Hey everyone, and welcome back to Lights Out Latest. My name is Marina, and I'm here with my fellow Formula One fans and friends, Tristan, Steven, and Jason. And today we're going to talk about a lot of the breaking news that's happened, and there has been a lot of it this week. But also, we're going to take a deep dive into sponsorships in F1, even looking into some fake sponsorships that have been on the cars in some recent years. Before we get into AlphaTauri and Lando and Charles and all that stuff, I want to talk about some Grand Prix that are going to be coming up potentially in the future. Firstly, Madrid Grand Prix was confirmed for 2026. I thought it was interesting that it's a street circuit, but there are some non-street circuit like parts to the track apparently.
Reminds me a lot of Canada. Like how Canada, it's around a public park, but they paved it and modified it to be like a permanent circuit almost. Also, certain parts of Miami is like semi-public, semi-purpose-built. Like
it's kind of like
it's
weird like Mexico too, right? Where Mexico they have that baseball stadium that's converted, right, just for the race. You know where the big bleacher seats are, kind of thing.
Is it? I don't know.
Pretty sure.
Yeah, it used to be a baseball stadium, but it was demolished. Yeah, they just use it as grandstands now.
Interesting.
Which is super cool area to have like section of the racetrack go right through the stadium.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Madrid.
Really
but cool. Yeah, Madrid. It's around
cool location.
Like an expo center.
Home race
for
like
how Miami is around Hard Rock Stadium.
Yeah, I love the idea. I don't know how much I want another street circuit on the track.
That's what I'm saying.
And on top of that, I don't want Barcelona going anywhere. And if we're going to have a race in Madrid, I highly doubt we're going to continue to have a race in Barcelona.
To be fair, Barcelona isn't a great racetrack. I don't know if Madrid's going to be any better. It might be worse, but...
That's where Catalonia is, right? That GP, that circuit?
Catalonia, Barcelona.
I love that circuit. That's one of my favorites. I mean, I don't know what the racing conditions are, but I mean, track-wise, that's one of my favorites.
It's fun to drive. Like, ever drive at like Gran Turismo, Assetto Corsa, your Formula One game?
I love driving on Forza.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I fully agree on the take of with what Marina, with what you were saying though. It's like it being a street circuit. I like a full-grown, homegrown racetrack more. I almost wish like my heart could say that they could go race at like Laguna Seca or something like that. Like that'd be cool.
Oh,
but, you know,
man.
I don't understand this like F1 need and want. It seems like all they want to do is add more races to the calendar and do that in the form of street circuits. Like I truly don't understand. There's so many established circuits that would provide for such good racing. And like we see the drivers like they love some of the more old school circuits like Silverstone, Spa. Like those are tracks that the drivers love to go to and they talk about it all the time. Whereas there's a lot of drivers, namely Max, that are like, I don't want to be at this street circuit. Like F1 cars, the way they are designed now, are too big and they're not good for wheel-to-wheel racing around a street circuit. Like, you're not going to get the same quality racing. So I don't understand. Like, if F1's trying to grow, why grow with street circuits? Like, that doesn't make sense to me.
Yep.
It's like F1's going back in time or like reverse aging. It's like they're going back to their roots, like the Maximilia, and going back on street circuits and stuff. You know,
well, it's because all these cities are paying a ton of money. Like a private circuit, can only pay so much money and make it back up with sponsorship and tickets. A city, they look at the tax revenue, bringing in a ton of people into the whole city. Like they have a lot more money to spend. Apparently, the deal for Madrid is around 48 million euros a year, which is about 52 million US dollars a year. And Barcelona, the Circuit de Catalunya, is in financial trouble, and the city council of Barcelona, they just sponsor the circuit. That isn't a real name of the circuit, and apparently they just pulled their sponsorship. So between attendance numbers and sponsorship of the Catalunya circuit, it looks like Madrid just had the better deal, like financially.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, I agree. Well, there is another potential added circuit. This came out, I think, late yesterday, that Formula One registered the trademark Chicago Grand Prix, Grand Prix of Chicago, Formula One Grand Prix of Chicago, and Formula One Chicago Grand Prix. Now, Jason, you raised a good point about this potentially just being like a counter thing, like just to make sure that they have the name if they want it in the future. But what do you guys think? Are we going to have a fourth U.S. race on the calendar?
I hope so, but I don't know. if I went in Chicago, I mean Chicago streets. I mean, I don't know, but
But it is battle proven now. I mean, I'm sure the points are being
no,
released. I'm
you're right.
sure people from F1 were watching the NASCAR race this past summer.
Yeah, I was.
Which obviously showed that it has potential and showed that it worked. I think I'm on the same page of Jason and Marino. It's like I think they just have it. I don't think it's going to be something we see within like maybe the next 2 or 3 years, maybe 5 years down the line or something like that.
Yeah,
it's like you said, 4 races in US. That's a bit much. Maybe something will get moved or something.
I would take Chicago over Miami.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like maybe it'll move.
Yeah, that's fair.
Also, that market in Miami is
It's a big market. It's
the upper class of motorsports is going to go where the money's being spent. The money's being spent in Miami. So,
100%.
Yeah. My thing is also, though, I mean, I'm all in favor of street courses, but my problem is that I just don't feel like the cars are built for them,
Definitely not.
I know there's, like, especially F1 cars. I mean,
F1 needs like high speed, wide track, kind of like, even Vegas got the closest to that, having a high speed, wide track. Like F1 cars are built for Monza or Silverstone, not a tight, windy circuit like Miami.
No,
Put Formula E at Miami. Put NASCAR or touring car on the streets of Chicago. Not, a high downforce car.
Cars that can get beat up a little bit. You know what I mean? Cars that can rub fenders. Because Vegas worked. Vegas was a great race, but it's
because it's just so wide and so fast. It was built for a high downforce fragile car like F1.
Yep.
But NASCARs, they could battle. Like Chicago was awesome because they could trade paint and be fine. F1 cars can't do that.
I mean,
you even see that in IndyCar too.
Look at back this year. I mean, that's another street circuit. I mean, they have that really wide straight, but Max spent the entire race looking at the back of Checo's car. No overtaking. He tried a couple times, but there's nowhere you're basically stuck where you're at. And the only time we saw any type of overtaking was when it was actually the only damage Max got all year was hitting Russell going into what was that, turn 2 or turn 3 or something like that in Baku. So and that kind of ruined both of their races that were sprint races in a sense. They were stuck where they're at. They have damage and stuff. So you don't have the space given how wide the F1 cars are now and how fragile they are to race at circuits like that. Continue adding that style of circuit onto the track. I think it just doesn't make for good racing.
Yeah.
No, we just need to see major changes if they're going to do that. I mean, I don't know what you can do to an F1 car to make it more street friendly, but
they are shrinking
about makes you cringe
for 2026, but it's not going to be that much. They're still high downforce, fragile cars. You need a dedicated circuit that's really fast.
Yeah. Well, let's get into perhaps the most. I don't want to say the most shocking because I think everybody kind of saw this name coming, but AlphaTauri official team name Visa Cash App RB.
Grumble, grumble, grumble.
They should have just called it Cash App F1 team. Why add the RB? Why add the Racing Bulls to it?
I don't know.
I just hate it. I think it's so bad.
It is.
It's long. It's an ugly game. I mean, I bet the car is probably going to look ugly too. It's probably going to be half green.
No, I actually think it's going to be great.
I think it's going to be a pretty livery. I do think. I do disagree with you. I think it's going to be a pretty livery.
I think it's going to ruin it though. I really do. I mean, I listen. A self plug for me. But I made a video on Throwback Thursday all about the history of Toro Rosso and that whole team, and that's been a gorgeous team ever since its conception.
Yeah.
But I have just an odd feeling. I have a feeling that they're gonna mess it up somehow.
I think there's so many different. I mean, I do think it's going to be a good car. Well, it can be. It has the potential to be a good car.
Absolutely.
The issue is I want to see how they're going to integrate the Red Bull, and how they're going to integrate the the Visa and everything into there's so many different colors in that, so many different colors they don't match. True. You can match blue, red, and yellow or green or whatever. Those colors will match.
It's just a lot.
On the tone of the car, the tone of the colors. If you're doing a neon green, you can't put it with a red. It looks horrible.
You know how Red Bull or AlphaTauri and Toro Rosso, you know how they've always had that on the side pod, just a really cool looking bull, kind of going forward. I feel like if they really want to get creative, they could put a bull on top of a credit card flying through the air.
Oh my God.
Red Bull
I
gives
want to
you
see a
wings,
special
right?
edition. Like
Red Bull gives you
like-
wings, exactly.
I
Oh
love
my gosh.
Get me on the creative team. Let it happen.
All I gotta say is Daniel Ricciardo has just won the Louis Vuitton Italian Grand Prix, sponsored by Visa Cash App.
Boom.
Well, apparently the internal name is V-carb, which I hate.
V carb, that's even
V-carb?
worse.
Oh, I think you were
Nobody's
saying
gonna
that.
call it that.
Yeah, and to be fair,
Nobody.
That is not family friendly.
I didn't understand. Yeah, I remember you saying that last
Oh no.
That is not
way
family
too close to
friendly.
something else. But it took me a long time to figure out why it was V-carb, but then I realized it was like the first letters, Visa, Cash App, RB, which makes sense now. But at the time, I was like, what the hell? Like,
Yeah.
it
I
doesn't
mean, imagine you're not into F1 and you just hear it's like, yeah, I'm a fan of Vic Carb. Like, what did you just say to me? Like,
It's just comical. Like, come on.
Well, they also launched their launch date. They released their launch date, which is going to be February 8th, and Haas will be February 2nd.
So we
that
have the
puts-
Haas car by this time next week, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, excited for that.
very
here we
excited.
go. Here we go.
It's gonna look
Coming.
exactly the same: gray, red, white,
Yeah, seriously.
You
matched
know.
together.
I really hope they can do something different, but I highly doubt it. I think it's going to be, it's just the way it is.
My
There's no
favorite Haas car was late 2017, where it was all gray, and on the front they had like this white and red like pinstriping. That I thought was the best, with the white Haas logo on the sides. They went through like 3 different iterations that season. Like they started off with red lettering, and then they also had a cool like shark fin design. That I missed, that digital like looking
So cool.
shark fin graphic on the 2017 Haas. That was
I mean, they got a good color palette as a team. Like, I like those colors.
Oh, for sure.
Like red,
Oh, yeah.
black, gray, and white. Like,
It has
it's
potential.
sweet. But, you know.
It kind of reminds me of like the Audi LMP team.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Here's a question. Whose livery is going to change more, Haas or Red Bull?
Ooh, that's a tough one. That's a tough
great
one.
question.
Jason says Haas.
Maybe.
Red Bull's not even a question. Red Bull is going to look exactly the same.
That's why they're
Yeah.
the last car launch date. So if they're not changing anything, at least they'll be memorable because they're the last ones.
At
That's
least Red Bull also gets creative. You know, I mean, like they had the Vegas scheme and they had like the Austin scheme.
white one.
The white one, yep. Like, I mean, they'll
that
get
was
creative
cool.
throughout the year. Haas is more than likely not going to do that. I think they had something maybe for Austin. But I can't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I liked
So,
that livery.
It was a good livery.
Yeah. Well, let's go. I'll run through the dates. It's February 2nd is Haas. February 5th, Stake and Williams. February 7th is Alpine. V-Carb is on the 8th. Aston Martin on the 12th. Ferrari on the 13th. Mercedes and McLaren on the 14th. And Red Bull on the 15th. All of February.
February could not come soon enough. I think we can all agree on that.
Oh yeah.
I know. Like, there's so many exciting things happening in February. Also, there's all the testing going on in February, which is going to be fun.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Before we move on truly to the driver talks and everything, I want to say that I think Zach Brown is copying me, or at the very least, he watches our podcast because
I'm telling you.
to raise concerns about V-Carb. I still can't. And Red Bull and them being owned by the same person and having that kind of conflict. I said it last podcast, so I don't want to dwell on this too much. But I wanted to mention that he is copying me.
Yep.
So
Yeah, we
Or
might
are
have
you
to send like
copying
a.
him?
nope. I said it first. I
we
said
might have to
that
send a
it's-
cease and desist letter very soon.
I said that it was probably more to do with the fact, like, yes, it's Christian said like Ferrari does it with Haas and everything, but that's different because they're different owners. And Red Bull and I'm gonna keep saying AlphaTauri, I can't do it. Red Bull and AlphaTauri are the same owner, so it is different. It's a different thing, but that's how I feel about it. I don't
Absolutely, and I think you're valid.
Hey,
Zach Brown, if you're listening, drop a comment, please.
Drop a
which
comment, Zach.
we know he is.
We know
Zach
he is.
is.
That's what he said.
Zach,
Anyways.
if you are listening, let me
Hey
drop
Zach, how you doing?
Dale Earnhardt Monte Carlo, please. I would love to do that.
All right, Lando Norris signed a contract extension. It's 2 years early. He's not up for renewal till 2026, or he wasn't. No confirmed length. I found this slightly strange. Did anybody else find that? Like, I was not expecting it until at least the end of this year.
It's
I
like
think
they're
it's strange, but in a really good
front-running
way.
competition from other
It's strange.
teams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like it locks him in even more so, and it also gives me like such a strong feeling that team has so much confidence in him that it's like they're like sure like they love Piastri as well. I'm sure, but they are fully willing to build this program around him to know that they're going to be that he's going to be their driver for years to come. So like they're also in a way in my mind is they're expecting to get locked in mechanically and all that to challenge Red Bull very soon. Like that's
They
what
got
that
the
means.
new
Oh,
They have their guy.
the new
Whatever it takes,
aerodynamicist.
right? Whatever
Hype
it takes.
me up, Tristan. Hype me up.
Dude, they got their guy, and now they just got to make it happen. So
Here's my thing, and I like what you said about them, locking him in because of how much competition and how many times have we heard around across the year where it was like, oh, Mercedes is interested in him, Red Bull is like, yes, he's a great driver, and so there are a lot of people interested. Now, I found it interesting the what he said when he did his interview, and he asked, well, what about Red Bull? Like they genuinely showed interest and stuff. And if you watch the full interview, basically the gist of what he said was, you're going into Max's team. It's going to take time to adapt, and people are going to expect me to be on top of my game, beating Max from day one. And that's not something like situation I want to be in, going into someone else's team, being the number 2 driver. Essentially,
it's Max's team.
However, the media is criticizing him, saying that he is running scared because the part of the interview that has been posted and posted and posted is basically him saying no driver wants to go in like with the best, like try and beat the best. And I was like, guys, he's not scared. He's just rational.
Man,
yeah, fair enough.
This
That's
is
why
what the problem
Ricardo
with the media these days. I swear.
Yeah, it is why he left, and it's also why why Verstappen was never going to go to Mercedes, for example. It's not because he has beef with Lewis; it's because him being in a team with Lewis is never going to work because they both want to be number 1 drivers.
Yep.
And you can still beat the best in different machinery. You don't have to be scared to go against Max. Nobody. I mean, I don't want to say nobody's scared to go against Max because Oscar Piastri literally said last year, he was like, I was leading the race, but it was a question of when Max was coming through, not if. So they were at least last year slightly demoralized by Max and being like, he's going to win. He's in the best car. He's potentially the best driver, but I don't know. I don't think he's scared.
No, man. I hope Lando takes that as motivation and just wins like every race next season. I mean,
that would be great.
That would be awesome.
There's very few drivers that I would rather win races than Max. Lando probably one of them.
Good.
So I love the McLaren hat, by the way.
Well, thank you.
Moving on to Ferrari. I'm sure Jason's probably very happy about Charles's contract extension. Again, no confirmed length, but he's
great for Ferrari. I don't know if it's going to be great for Charles yet. Hopefully Ferrari gets their stuff together and they could get a good car again. Like even like 2018 level, like they're competing for the championship then. 2017 they're close to. Both those years just totally didn't keep up with development. 2022 even then, first few races, they got the 1-2. Charles was like 40 points ahead, and they just couldn't keep up throughout the year. They just fell off. Red Bull developed better. They adjusted to the car better. Ferrari fell back. No upgrades really, helped them.
Decent strategy.
Yep. Enough that you could hope out of Ferrari. Yeah. So it was.
I saw so many comments that were like, Charles signed a contract extension, but now they're going to have to sign a contract with the therapist because.
Man, can we just? I mean, this just raises more questions. I feel like about Carlos Sainz and his contract situation.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's just. I don't know. I feel bad for Carlos. I mean, he's just kind of sitting there, just looking at Charles like, "Oh, wow, congratulations, bud. Is it my turn yet?"
I think when I don't want to say he failed, but when Mick didn't go the way that Ferrari were expecting, being like that household name, that Schumacher name, I think that they just kind of put all their eggs in the Leclerc basket, and that's their guy moving forward. I mean, we talk about, Schumacher with Ferrari and, with Red Bull and Max and stuff like that. I think that they're setting it up to be something very similar. If Ferrari can get it right, we're going to talk about Charles with Ferrari.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Carlos was a stopgap until Mick was ready, and Mick
Exactly.
proved to never be ready. So now
And
they're kind of in a limbo where, like, we didn't really want you, Carlos, but you're doing good enough that we should keep you.
Man, that
And
hurts.
now they're
That
like in
hurts.
this weird place where they don't want to sign him for a long-term deal.
It is a weird
Oh.
limbo. That's a good way of putting it.
maybe this limbo is why it was released early. The fact that he had signed a contract extension because it was a Spanish journalist who has really
Ooh.
and to the Sainz family who released early that Charles had indeed signed a contract extension. So that kind of calls into question. Maybe he was like, well, if you're not going to give me a deal, then here, I'll feed this to the media. Not that I genuinely don't think that it was him or anything like that, but
No.
it could call that into question. Kind of like someone from a journalist who's always been like, yeah, you guys is like number one guy and whatever. He's like, you're right. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm gonna be interested to see what happens with Charles. I mean, not Charles, Carlos, the next few years. I mean, especially depending on. I think it largely depends on how Charles does. But yeah, I mean, if this gets worse for Carlos, I don't know, man. I mean,
Carlos's move is to go to Audi, and I don't think anybody is talking about this, but Carlos is a Red Bull Junior, right? Who's to say he can't go back to Red Bull?
Yep.
Why is nobody talking about him taking Sergio's place?
Yeah, he would be
That's a
everyone
great
for
point.
Sergio for sure.
Like, why would they go for
Apple's
Ricardo, who's been at the midfield or the back of the field,
Exactly.
even out of F1, when you have
Yeah.
Sainz, a race winner, step on step with Leclerc since 2021? I mean, he's been behind him a few more races than not, but when Leclerc doesn't show up, it's Carlos. He's the only person to win a race other than Red Bull in 2023.
Technically, Red Bull did win all the races last year because, like I said, Carlos is a Red Bull Junior. So maybe
no
we could
longer.
just
He used to be.
I mean, my only thing is though. I mean, is Carlos gonna want to be another 2 driver?
Yeah,
that's what I was about to say.
I feel like
same
I
situation.
Like
both teams, I think.
Exactly.
Leclerc is Ferrari's guy.
It
Max,
it would be
is he going to go to
Bull,
Audi?
I'd say. If he could be Audi's number 1, I think he probably could for sure.
His dad really wants him to. From what
keep it in the family.
His dad is an Audi driver for the rally team
for sure. Yeah. That would be a full circle moment for him, I think, and I think that'd be really deserving for him.
There's also
would he be?
There's a very loose possibility of Andretti. I don't think that's any tentative planning, but it's still something to think about. They need drivers.
It is.
They make it happen. They need people. So
yeah. For sure. Well, Ferrari also had other contract announcements this week. Ollie Behrman, 18-year-old, who's a Ferrari Academy driver driving for Prema in Formula 2, is going to be their reserve driver this year. I don't know if that's second to Schwartzman or if that's going to be like, here's our new reserve.
It's weird. They name multiple drivers that are like reserve test development. Like Antonio Giovinazzi is still technically a reserve driver for Ferrari. Like if you look them up, they have 3 reserve drivers. Like why would you need that?
And they've also signed Arthur Leclerc as as another development driver, which as much as I love Arthur, I just find it slightly strange because he did announce that he was leaving the Ferrari family. He's leaving Formula 2. He's going to be racing in GT3. I feel like it just doesn't make sense. Like, I love it for him. Like, go Arthur, great for you. But it doesn't quite make sense to me. Like, it seems a lot like there was family influence there,
Yeah.
I'm sure
I mean, I don't know if you all know, but like, I'm curious to know what the ladder is for reserve drivers, like how they pick and choose who's going to race when, because I think, I mean, yeah, because like
if for example Charles can't race, who's taking
exactly like how does that get picked? Like who you're gonna be like, okay, it's your turn. Like I mean, obviously it's just sign the guy, so I mean, I wouldn't expect them to just throw them in and if there's a situation that occurs, but yeah, I'd be curious to know that for sure.
I would assume that it's going to start with looking at who's actually available.
Yeah.
Seeing that, where Giovinazzi's he's racing, what is he in Le Mans? He's doing Le Mans.
Yeah, he's doing endurance.
Yeah, he's doing endurance. Then you have Arthur with GT3, and you have Ollie Behrman with Formula 2. I don't know what Robert Schwartzman's racing next year. I
He
have to look
might
and check if
also
he
be GT.
is he GT3 as well, or jump side of GT racing. But I'd say first they're going to look at who's like available. But then secondly, I'd probably say Giovinazzi would be their number one because he's a proven like he's been in F1. If you're going to have to throw someone in last minute, then I would probably say he'd be their number one to throw in. I don't know what you guys think, but
that's a fair line of thinking.
Giovinazzi is still their reserve driver?
Yeah.
Okay.
Technically. Yeah. So
interesting.
Hanging around.
Yeah. Well, last bit of breaking news: Gunther Steiner is going to release a second book.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Good for him.
Yeah. It's going to be a little bit changed now than before. I wonder if it was going to be about 2023 or if it's going to be about like
2022.
Yeah. Well, that was the previous book was 2022. So this one is either 2023 or he's like starting it now as like an autobiography. I don't know what it's going to be.
Maybe. Yeah. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see what he kind of comes up with. I mean, also, I'm really interested to see how, if they're going to talk about it at all in Drive to Survive at the end of the season. And also,
Netflix might still bring him in as like
that's what I was gonna
just
say.
a guy to still talk about.
Yeah. Like, kind of like when they bring in like Will Buxton and a lot of people like commentators and stuff, just to like give their 2 cents. I feel like maybe they'll do that with Gunther, or at the very least have like one of the first episodes. If they're not going to do anything this year, with this season, have it like next year, like the first episode of season 7, be kind of focused around Gunther and everything going on with Haas.
After the book,
I'm interested to see how he addresses that in the book. Honestly,
After the book, he's dropping what I've heard. Insiders on the market have told me he's dropping a diss track on Gene Haas. Real bars from Gunther real soon.
Guys, that was funny.
Yeah, let's get a verses. Let's get a verses going here.
Get a couple. Just spit a little bit.
a little rap battle.
Something like that.
Oh man.
Let's move into some of the sponsor stuff. Like we said, we're taking a bit of a deep dive into sponsors. The main thing I think that's like very different with F1 sponsors, and there's a lot of things, but the main one is that there's no commercial break in F1. If you look at NFL, MLB, pretty much any American sport, even I was watching, the Australian Open, that you go to commercial break and then you come back. Yeah. And it's and then sometimes you miss stuff. Sometimes like in the NFL, sometimes you don't miss anything. But that's how they get in their sponsorship revenue and all that stuff with commercials. They make money off selling that airspace. F1, on the other hand, puts all these sponsors on cars, and they also put them around the circuit. So like you'll see like Heineken all the time. They're like one of their main sponsors. So they're like pretty much at every track. You'll see like Heineken all across the track. So that's like the biggest thing. But there's also different like aims for sponsors. So we look into like what does Ray-Bans want out of their partnership with Formula One, right? They want to make more of an emotional connection. Like Charles wearing Ray-Bans is a big thing because everybody loves Charles, and that's going to make them want to, purchase that product. Whereas we were talking before the podcast about Rocket, which was on Williams' car. Was that 2020?
Yeah, 2020. For like a little bit, yeah.
And so like that was more for Rocket, was more to get their name out there, because like to this day I don't know what Rocket is, but I will forever remember that name and how it's spelled. So it's more like just publicly getting their name out there. There's also another one, and I think Jason was the one who kind of brought this to my attention. It's sponsoring to meet other sponsors, so business to business kind of relations. It was really interesting. I didn't expect that to be a reason to sponsor an F1 team, given how expensive the sport is.
Yeah, well, that's the biggest reason, I think behind you see all these, I know we'll get into later, sketchy sponsors and stuff like that. It's just because F1 is such an expensive sport that I know you said to your point, like they don't go commercial breaks and stuff like that, so they have to have space for sponsors, but they also just need these sponsors to just, not get by, but to, pay their expenses, because I know we talked about before that cap space doesn't include, like the top 3 positions in the F1 teams. What's it called?
Salary.
Yeah.
Or the driver's salary.
Yeah, that travel I think is not included, and a bunch of other stuff isn't included. So I mean,
yeah,
just to for lack of a better word, get by, they need those sponsorships and they need it wherever they can get it. So
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
just to sponsor a team to get like corporate hospitality. So like if you got a big client as a business,
yeah,
you're
yeah,
not looking for publicity, you're more looking for like, hey, let's give our clients or prospective clients a cool event to go to. And they show up
yeah,
to the event and you wow them and you sell them something else. Or like
yeah,
Marina said that like, get a business relationship. Like, oh, this team owner owns a huge like, I don't know, healthcare company. I'm a healthcare
yeah,
company. I want to sell stuff to them. So let me
Yeah.
yeah,
sponsor his racing team to get in contact with him to like meet those type of people.
yeah,
And then there's also like suppliers like Pirelli and Shell who actually just supply equipment. Like Pirelli supplies tires, Shell
yeah,
supplies oil. Mali, I think that's what you say. They supply like
yeah.
a lot of electronics parts to Ferrari and
yeah,
racing teams and tools. So yeah, all stuff like that. That isn't just traditional sticker on the car. Wow, I'm gonna go to the store and buy it. There's a
yeah,
lot
yeah,
of other B2B, business to business type of relationships.
yeah.
Is
Like even
also why.
Oracle
Yeah,
with
Yep,
Red Bull,
that's a
I
giving
was
them
gonna
huge
say
like
Yep,
one.
Oracle and Petronas with Mercedes, like the same idea,
yep,
like energy
yeah,
yep.
companies, because the
Haas.
sport is just so technologically like involved. It's so like it's not just like a football game. There's not just dudes running around on grass. It's like no, we have this very over engineered vehicle that needs to be like
True, true.
it's such a vague representation of football, but that's spot on.
It's true. I mean, there isn't a lot you can sponsor in football besides cleats and jerseys,
Yeah. Well,
and
that's another
yeah,
Gatorade.
thing, though, is you have this bullet going around the racetrack that is just a mobile billboard. You know what I mean? That's just
Yeah,
how it goes.
literally, literally.
Um,
yeah,
that's the unique thing about racing in general is, I mean, NASCAR does it really good because it's really easy to sponsor the sides of it because it's just
Yeah,
flat. It's a flat piece of
yeah.
sheet metal. Harder in Formula One, obviously, because the car looks so goofy. But,
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it's the
Very
same
true.
concept. Same concept.
There's
I
also
will say
some.
though, I was just gonna say the interesting thing about NASCAR is too, and I've seen it recently. I think you've probably seen it too, Tristan. Is that like NASCAR sponsors? You could see like a lot more localized sponsors. Like you'll
Yeah.
see like appliance manufacturers and
They
like
change
trucking
almost every
companies, and
race, IndyCar
yeah,
and
Yeah.
NASCAR.
yeah,
Well,
And
if
yeah,
they're in
F1, you
like,
don't see that. I've started to see it. Like all the US races, Ferrari were sponsored by Celsius energy drink because Celsius is sold in the US, but not anywhere
yeah.
else.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
have regional
True.
stuff all the time. Like when they're racing in Vegas, some cars will be sponsored by casinos, or if they're
Yeah,
racing in
yeah,
like Daytona. I remember last year at the Xfinity series, which is basically the college series of NASCAR, Wawa sponsored 4 cars. I mean,
I don't even know
Wawa's
that.
very prevalent on the East Coast,
Yeah,
especially in Florida. I mean,
yeah,
regional based sponsoring, which is also probably prevalent in Formula One as well. I would need to know more
Yeah,
about it
yeah,
because,
Ferrari too. Like deals like the Celsius one,
yeah,
or
yeah,
some
yeah,
other teams have started doing regionalized, like race by race sponsorships, where they're
yeah,
not there
yeah,
on the car all season.
which is
yeah,
super cool.
yeah.
yeah,
And you also, I was just gonna say also before you go there, Marina, I was just gonna say also you see a couple cars in NASCAR. I know for a fact you see university sponsors, like
Yes,
college sponsors. Like you
Penn
have William
State.
Byron. Yeah, well, yep, that. And I was gonna say William Byron. He has Liberty University, which I think he's still attending, which is also
I
interesting.
think so.
That's
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah,
cool.
but
I wonder if they
yeah,
give him free
that's
tuition for that.
I'm
yeah,
sure they
They
do.
better.
right.
I'm sure they do.
Well, what I was going to say is I think there's also something to be said about like brand loyalty. Like people that
Yeah,
will say, for example, you're a Red Bull fan or a Max fan, and so you won't drink all these other energy drinks, for example, like Monster or whatever,
Yep.
because you're Red Bull only.
yeah,
Like I don't drink energy drinks, but Steven was very kind to bring me a Max Verstappen Checo Red Bull empty can. Thank you for that, by the way.
no
Um,
problem.
and so like yeah, so there's that brand loyalty aspect as well.
It worked
And
on me. Pirelli, they sell bike tires. That's the only reason why I went straight for Pirelli bike tires. What I
Really?
needed to do for my bike, I
There you
needed
go.
like winter bike tires,
Do you own
and I
a pair of
immediately look up
Ray-Bans as
Pirelli.
well?
Ray-Bans?
Ray-Bans?
I don't have a pair of Ray-Bans.
He's
I have a
got
pair of one pair of Oakleys, and I was gifted them.
ooh,
I didn't even go out and buy them myself. But Oakley sponsors Aston Martin, so
yeah.
There you go.
maybe
There you go.
I them more highly than I should.
I was gonna say also, with the since you brought up the energy drink thing, I know NASCAR has the Coca-Cola family of drivers, which is pretty cool. I mean, I don't think they'll necessarily do that. Well, yeah, I guess they wouldn't necessarily do that in F1 unless they did that with like Red Bull or something.
Well,
like that.
see, like Coke
it's a cool thing.
Coke's different though because Coke is an example of does that company need sponsorship? No. Do they need to get their name out there? You could go to like the most remote country in the world and maybe somebody there would even know what Coca-Cola is.
Well, I mean, you want the reminder advertising.
Yeah.
Like, they need to do something, otherwise the name people will forget eventually.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. I mean, you see billboards and all that. Also, but the Coca-Cola family of drivers, like they're not directly sponsoring a car, but they're sponsoring around the event. They're also giving personality to these drivers. They're like, oh, my driver's a Coke driver. Like, yeah.
And also, I was just gonna mention also, I wonder if we're gonna see this in F1 where they, you know how they go into like POVs in NASCAR and they have like, so this is like the Coca-Cola cam on like Denny Hamlin or something like that.
That's a huge difference with IndyCar is every onboard camera is sponsored. Like they're like, we're gonna go on the EPG onboard camera at Joseph Newgarden's car. Like you don't have that in F1.
Which I think we're gonna go towards that now, especially with the Visa Cash App thing. I saw a post that was really funny to me, and it kind of reminded me also of NASCAR. Like, you know, Tristan, the last lap, 1 lap to go, presented by Capital One.
Credit One Bank.
We're gonna start they're
God.
making fun of that. Like they're gonna have that in F1 now with like the last lap presented by Heineken 00 or something.
Probably.
Or like, and you have the safety car presented by Pirelli or something.
Or are they gonna start sponsoring races directly? Like we have like the Coke 400.
Yep.
Daytona,
Coke 600,
In F1, you have like the Qatar Airways, Qatar Grand Prix, and stuff like that.
There you go. Yeah.
Miami and stuff like that. There's also like the stuff with like they have like the F1 official sponsors, which are stuff like we see like the DHL Fastest Lap and the Pirelli Pole Position Award and stuff like that, where you have other ways of putting your name out there. That, like you said, it's not just on the car. And it worked on Jason. You know, it can work on everyone. I can't see how much of the market they're actually like how many people actually buy products because it's on an F1 car.
Yeah, for sure.
Like the margins. With that said, before we move into fake sponsorships, I want to recap the top 5 biggest reported sponsorships of 2024. Oracle topping that list. Red Bull named sponsor for $90 million.
Oof.
Yeah,
almost the budget cap for a whole year.
Yeah, that
is true.
Insane how much money. But I'm assuming a lot of that money will go to other things that are not in the budget cap. Things like hotels, things like like they bring in all of this money through sponsorships, but they're not only spending it on the car. You have to think about, salaries that you have to pay. There was that whole thing with Force Indy, I don't know what year that was, where the owner couldn't pay, and like a lot of what is now Haas, what is now Racing, Aston Martin, which was Racing Point and all that stuff, where they couldn't pay their employees. So a lot of their employees hadn't been paid in a while. So you have to think about all that other stuff that's not just getting the car onto the track, and like producing the actual parts, salary wise.
It allows them to do a lot of the fun stuff outside of the budget cap. Like just putting your team in a better hotel is like such a better experience. I'm sure like teams, if you go to a 5-star hotel and like you get a massage and you go to sleep after a long day of work at the track, you're probably going to do better the next day if you're put in a motorhome on a rock solid bed, a bottom of the barrel, like 1-star place,
But also,
that's like a low-key throwing shade at NASCAR there. Wow.
Well, maybe they spend it on really nice motorhomes. Some of their motorhomes are nice.
They do have nice motorhomes.
They do. Yeah, most of the Cup drivers do.
Yeah. Well, they also have even like you'll look at McLaren has a Hilton sponsor and they stay at Hilton hotels. They probably if they pay anything for those hotels, they definitely pay pretty cheap.
Yeah.
I'd say they have pretty big discounts on hotels around the world because of that.
Mercedes had like Marriott Bonvoy for a while.
Yeah.
So they're taking at like Ritz-Carlton, Marriott's, like.
Yeah. I don't know if Aston Martin still has it, but I know at one point Aston Martin was sponsored by Waldorf Astoria, and that's like the top of the line hotel chain right there.
That is like insane.
I think a lot of people forget also that like these pit crew people, like I would almost consider them athletes themselves. Like they play a huge role in the outcome of the race, and they have to be well rested, well trained. They have to be at the top of their game. Like to get those sub 2 second pit stops, like we saw with I think it was McLaren 1.8.
Yep.
Was
1.98, I believe.
You have to be completely in sync. And that's no small feat. I mean, like, I do think that could, those could play roles, like having a good night's sleep, that definitely plays a role. I mean, if that affects whether or not we do well on an exam, it's definitely going to affect whether or not they do well at a pit stop,
Right.
If they would apply that knowledge to college, man, that'd be nice. Put us in some 5-star hotels. Yeah, I'll do great in that exam. Just put me in there.
I know my apartment's pretty nice right now, but I don't know how the dorms are this year.
No, my dorm's nice. My dorm's nice.
Okay,
I can't complain.
All right. Well, I don't know if I said number 3, Petronas is also 75 million, Stake for 50 million, and Bybit for 40 million. So those were the top 5 sponsors last year. Top 5 sponsors going into this year for 2024. So
you can open up a whole can of worms with the Bybit thing. Oh my gosh, with like the whole cryptocurrency. I mean, I don't know if we're gonna touch on it later, so I don't want to get into it too much, but. Man, it's crazy, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, FTX was a huge sponsor of Mercedes before they collapsed.
Yeah, I didn't want to get into it.
But it seems like Bybit is a bit more legit. Like they actually make money.
Yeah.
Stake, they're a crypto gambling company, but like they're technically legit. Like they make money and pay the money. Petronas, they supply oil to Mercedes, and they just sponsor them. But yeah, those are the biggest deals.
All right, let's go into fake F1 sponsorships.
Here we go.
Let's do it.
Oh boy.
Do you wanna take T- first, Jason?
Yeah, sure. So this was pretty crazy. That in 1999, Aero's F1 team were sponsored by a company owned by a Nigerian prince called T-. Now the whole point of the company was to like pay for tons of brand and sponsorship so everybody knew the T- name, and then other companies could just buy the name and label their products as T- products. Like if I was making an energy drink and I saw a T- on an F1 car, I'm like, oh, everybody knows the T- name. I want to brand my energy drink T-. That was the business models. I would pay that guy, Prince Malik Ado Ibrahim, however millions of dollars to make my energy drink the T- energy drink. And like that was the idea. Apparently
that's like
it never
IQ.
really took off. Like the energy drink might have happened, but you also had plans to like start, branding motorcycles, T- motorbikes, other weird stuff, even a Lamborghini as a T- like vehicle. Apparently the team, even though this guy owned 25% in the Aero's F1 team, the money never went through. Like he never paid the team for any of the T- sponsorship or owning like part of the team, or maybe he did, but it was sold off later. And
that's not good.
So it was just total disaster. Like he sponsored a team before he had a company to sponsor the team with.
Yeah. I also
sounds like a rich energy
genius.
Yeah.
I also saw that he like disappeared and then showed back up a couple years later in like NASCAR.
Yeah, he sponsored the
tried
NASCAR
to sponsor.
team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's insane.
This guy.
Anyways, another one I found interesting was Mission Winnow, who they're Ferrari sponsors. But what I didn't know, which is fishy, is that they're a shell company for what used to be Marlboro, which is cigarettes. But in 2006, the FIA banned cigarette promotion in F1, and they created this shell company to continue sponsoring. Now, I've seen this logo thousands of times on the Ferrari car. Every time you see a race, it was there. They had to remove it several times for different races. I think it was like Australia. They had to remove it and stuff because Australia was like, you can't advertise this. Like, it's basically advertising for the company. But I had no idea what it was until I found this, and I was like, that's so interesting. Like, that's like it's like a little like escape hatch, right? Like, you can't directly sponsor, but here's my shell company who like literally does the same thing and will just sponsor that.
Yep, they find a way around. I remember looking, even if you like take the Mission Winnow logo and you flip it on its side, like it kind of looks like the Marlboro like chevron, kind of like going upwards type thing.
It's like the slant on the logo is like the Marlboro chevron.
Yep.
Yeah. Really interesting. But
sleazy corporate cigarette companies always finding a way.
You know how it is.
Oh yeah.
There was also the Haas title sponsor in 2019, which is Rich Energy. They never actually produced energy drinks.
I feel like that story could be a podcast in and of itself.
I mean, well, I think I heard that they literally came in to sponsor with like $75 in their bank account or something like that.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous. It's like, how do y'all let this happen? You know, it's just, I don't know.
Yeah, I also saw something about potentially them, like Rich Energy talking to other. I think they were one of the companies that were talking to multiple teams.
Yeah, they were talking to like Williams and McLaren, I think, or something like that.
There's photos of the Rich Energy logo on a Williams F1 car, like the 2019 car. Apparently, the owner Williams Story just never showed up to the Williams factory to see this car. I don't know if that's true, but the photo exists. Look it up, like Williams Search Energy.
See, like all I can point fingers is like the legal team for the Haas team. It's like who is just letting? Oh no, guys.
Yeah,
this is legit. Things are checking out. Business is booming. Like that's like get out of here, dude. The guy's got $75 in a dream. Like there's no way.
Exactly. Well, the craziest thing is that this isn't just like a secondary sponsor. This is their title sponsor.
Yeah, it was the title sponsor of the team.
This was their livery for like a year or something like that, and they had everywhere over there.
I mean, they looked great, but
still.
I was gonna say, actually, that was one of my. Go ahead.
As much as they ended up not paying for Haas F1 team title sponsorship, they did sponsor like a junior league motor racing team, like a motorbike team, and they also sponsored some amateur boxer fighter guy. But those are arguably like way less expensive than sponsoring F1. So, you know, obviously that's why it fell apart.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, there are also a lot of like interesting sponsors that aren't fake. Like we talked earlier in the season, Monster Energy has stopped sponsoring Mercedes and moved on to McLaren, but they are still sponsoring Lewis, which I also find strange because Lewis now also has his own drink company. If you didn't know that, go check out Fun Fact Friday from this week on our Instagram and TikTok. But
shameless plug.
He does have a drink company. So if you're not going to sponsor the team, why keep sponsoring? I mean, I know Lewis has like huge branding potential.
Yeah.
But I just find it a little weird that he would.
This could be F1's Coca-Cola family of drivers thing, you know? I mean, you can kind of see that with Monster Energy now. I mean, you know,
something like that.
That's an important thing. In F1, like you could have personal sponsors and then like team sponsors. Like, you know, I think Hublot was like a personal sponsor of Vettel. And when he went to Ferrari, Hublot became the official watch of Ferrari F1 team. And as soon as he left, they went back to Richard Mille.
Yeah. Those things and come out and, you know, like we talk also, we'll get into like some more driver sponsors later, but like Checo's like basically his career bankrolled by certain people, you know, Telmex and stuff. And like we look at Lawrence Stroll, who literally bought an F1 team for his son. And we have later on down the line, Nikita Mazepin's dad, who like basically like sponsored, but like majorly sponsored Haas. And then as soon as Nikita was kind of left, we had that whole issue with him being, you know, Russian and that being Russian money with the Ukraine-Russia war starting to go down. And then, you know, kind of they all pulled out both the sponsor, but also Nikita Mazepin leaving F1.
Yeah.
But you have all these like different sponsors that are just like solely affiliated because of the driver or like affiliated with the driver. So
yeah,
I think that's interesting.
And you have clothing brands too, which I think is a cool thing as well. I mean, obviously you got Jason with the Puma, with Ferrari, you got Mercedes, you got Timmy Hilfiger. I think
Tommy.
let's see what else.
Timmy.
What'd you say?
I'm sorry.
Timmy Hilfiger.
Stephen called
Oh my
kids version.
Yeah.
You also have McLaren, which I forget which one they have, but they have one now too.
Yeah,
But,
Castor.
Right.
Yeah.
I dug up that Jack Daniels had a pretty good partnership. I think they still do with McLaren, but last year in select races where cities like were hosting F1 races, you could actually get limited edition McLaren Jack Daniels bottles. So that was pretty cool. Yeah.
There you go.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Very interesting. Also, you mentioned like clothing, like AlphaTauri, that's clothing as well.
True.
Big
True.
sponsor. I forgot to mention this earlier in our breaking news, but I found this earlier today. I think his name is Peter Windsor, who he's an F1 journalist, but he used to be more involved. I think he was like a sponsors manager and stuff like that. He is claiming that this is a make it or break it year for Daniel and for Yuki. If Yuki obliterates Daniel's career in F1 is done. He's no Red Bull, no nothing. You're gone. But if Daniel obliterates Yuki, then Daniel's up to Red Bull and Yuki's out of a job.
Wow.
So
Jesus.
that's a big claim.
That's some tension.
Liam Lawson needs to get a seat somehow.
Yeah.
To be fair to both, they're both F1 veterans. This is Yuki's 4th year now?
Yeah, something like that. 3rd or 4th.
Like if he isn't improving or matching Daniel Ricciardo, then I think it's fair to kick him out for next in line.
For sure.
Yeah. I agree. All right. Let's get into quote of the day. I gotta find my quote of the day.
Okay.
Oh boy.
Let's get the brain working here again. Let me kickstart it real quick.
I'm locked in.
All right.
Ooh.
Let's do this one. I think this is pertinent going into a season, an F1 season.
Okay.
If you want to stand on the top from day one, then there's nothing else to look forward to. There's more to the quote, but that's the beginning of the quote.
That feels like Max Verstappen to me.
No, not
old.
Max.
It sounds old. It doesn't sound like a new driver would say that.
It's not. It's not super like it's been a while since this was quoted, but the driver is still on the grid.
Okay.
Oh shoot. Okay. I'm gonna say Alonso.
That was gonna be my second guess. Oh
no, you're getting closer.
He's got to be a veteran.
Is it Ricciardo?
It is Ricciardo.
Really?
Yes.
I would never see him.
That sounds like something he would say. He's had such a rough career until rising up.
So good.
Wow.
Ricciardo's
When
such
did
a
he say it?
happy
Do
guy.
you have
when did he say it? Yeah.
Yeah.
This was an off-track, like McLaren kind of interview. I mean, if you look up the whole thing, there's it's like a 3-minute thing of him just talking about, being in F1, but like making sure you enjoy the journey. Like he said, if you want to stand on the top from day one, then there's nothing else to look forward to. Kind of looking at, bringing family along with you and stuff like that. I don't know if you guys, I've seen this. I'll show you guys later. On it's all over TikTok and stuff. There's a big culture about it. There's also I think in the same quote was like enjoy the butterflies.
Okay.
People have gotten that tattooed. Enjoy the butterflies. So yeah, I don't remember when that was. I want to say he was definitely at McLaren when that happened. So it's been a couple of years. But
all right.
Okay.
Anyways, 23 days until Bahrain testing. 33 days till lights out in Bahrain. We're getting closer. But until then, we do have Tech Tuesday, WAG Wednesday, Throwback Thursday, Fun Fact Friday, and Men on the Street videos on our Lights Out latest Instagram and TikTok for you to entertain yourselves now during the off season and of course during the season. And of course, this podcast will air every Monday at 11:30 Eastern time. There we go, shameless plug.
There it is.
Drop a follow, like,
leave a comment.
Leave a comment.
We read all the comments.
But thank you guys so much for watching. We hope you learned a lot about sponsors. And if you have more questions or if you have ideas for future videos, drop those in the comments as well. Bye, guys.